Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the topic of how conservatives are ruining society. So, for this video, I will explain three ways conservatives are ruining society in an objective way without any personal political biases being attached. So, now that I mention that, let's get started. So, when it comes to the truth about how conservatives are ruining society, the first point is simply down to the fact that their policies are terrible. Okay? Specifically, when it comes to economics and the environment. Okay, to be quite honest with you, okay, that is the truth of the matter when it comes to their way of thinking. To be quite honest with you, and the truth of the matter is when it comes to this problem with these two particular issues, the reason why I say that is that first and foremost, their ideology when it comes to economics is terrible. The idea that you want to have as little regulation as possible, which common sense would obviously indicate, that you want to have regulation for something as important as money, as the saying goes, money makes the world go around, versus having no regulation whatsoever. Because when you have regulation for that matter, okay, it makes it way less likely people are going to become greedy. And we all know money can really bring out the worst in people, and not just bring out the worst in people, it can also attracts very very negative people. So why do you want to have as much little regulation as possible so you can create something that could eventually result in a financial crisis, just like we saw in a 2008 financial crisis, to be exact. So the truth of the matter is, conservatives, when it comes to their way of thinking, when it comes to the markets, is simply terrible. Because the truth of the matter is, you do want regulation, for that matter. It's not even a case of well, people have different opinions on how things should be run. No, it's just dumb, for that matter. Okay, it's just dumb, and common sense would indicate if you just leave people with a lot of money and you're not monitoring them, a lot of people are going to do a lot of really shady things, but they don't want to listen. So you see what happens as a result. And then other one, you know, when it comes to their policies, and there's definitely more than these two, but these are the two biggest ones, of course. Specifically the second point, which is the environment. Okay, conservatives are absolutely terrible with understanding how to maintain the environment. Okay, specifically when it comes to global warming. Okay, they always make the argument, well, how do you know it's true or not? Or even just simply say, I don't believe it's true or not. The world goes through hot cycles numerous times, pseudoscience crap, you hear all the time. But even if it was true that global warming is not true, why would you want to take a risk in doing it in the first place? Like, it's down to just straight up common sense, because as the saying goes, if you create something in life that is a problem by not resolving a problem, common sense would indicate that you can't change it. It's just like, if I have reckless or something and I injure a body part badly, I can't turn back the clock and say, okay, yes, I screwed it up. Okay, I'm just gonna heal myself when now I no longer have, like, for example, legs. You know, that's what I'm trying to say, though. When it comes to this specific issue, and this is a perfect example of that. Why do you want to take a risk for something like that? Common sense would indicate, they should put a lot of time and effort into making sure we take care of the environment when it comes to the issue of global warming and this and that, but they don't want to do it. They just want to spend their time just saying it's not true or not. God forbid it happens, and what do we do then? If it turns out the world is screwed, what do we do? Like, what the fuck do we do? What? Just pretend and act like, oh well, we'll just find a way around it, or just try to ignore it. That doesn't make any sense, because it's the world in general as a whole. Like, what are you going to do to find a way around it? Even if you can find a way around it, the world's screwed no matter how you look at it. Would you even want to live in a world like that? So common sense would indicate, why don't you just deal with the issue? Like, maybe invest money to see if we can figure out how to create an electric car and all this type of stuff. But they don't do that, which is so freaking dumb. So to answer your question in short, for the first point, that is why conservatism is absolutely ruining society, because their way of handling issues in the world specifically the two I mentioned, is terrible. Okay, so now let's get to the second point. The second point, when it comes to the issue of why conservatism is ruining society, is creating division in society for that matter, okay? And the truth of the matter is, even though I'm a black person and I'm not white, I don't know what went through white people's heads, to be quite honest with you. I would imagine a majority of them are just like everyday people. They just simply want to live a good life, have a nice, comfortable house with kids, focus on their own particular, you know, um, passions, interests, whatever for that matter, and are interested in also, having as much money as possible. In other words, they just want to live a normal life. They're not focused like how people 100 plus years ago in their community were like, where they wanted glory, like they wanted to feel like, oh, we're better than everyone else and all that type of stuff by saying like, oh, our nation's the most powerful nation. That is a long time ago, okay, for that matter. And I would imagine the majority of white people are not like that anymore, at least. But the truth of the matter is, how are we going to do that if we obviously live in a world where we have people in positions of power for the Conservative Party, not just for America, but for Canada, Europe, and even other parts of the world for that matter, who consistently jeopardize that racial harmony by enforcing policies that make it more freaking likely that we could possibly have a race war, for that matter, because they do things that are hurtful or this and that, or not even just that for that matter, but just create in general a lot of conflict, that that of course is not a pleasant experience to deal with. Even if it's not violent, it can definitely not be a very pleasant experience whatsoever for that matter to experience it. Society in general has historically shown they don't like being questioned on things. They don't like being challenged and being called bigots. They don't like it. They never liked it and they never will like it. So why do you want to create that in the first place? Let alone take the chance, even though it's very unlikely. But even still, we can have massive racial tension, for that matter. That could also result in violence, whether on a small scale, like in certain regions of America, just using America as an example here for the race war scenario. Yeah, like I was saying before, whether it could be for a small portion of America or for even widespread across America. Why the hell do you want to take a risk at that? That's so dumb. It's like, what did even black people even do to you guys? For that matter. It's so stupid, for that matter. Because in the end of the day, conflict is conflict. And even if the whites have more stuff, it still doesn't mean they're not going to take losses. Look at what happened to them when they fought against the Taliban, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, or just in general, the Muslim insurrectionists. They couldn't even defeat them because warfare is terrible. It costs a lot of money. It destroys, infrastructure, and most importantly of all, it costs human lives. It's a fucking terrible thing, to be quite honest with you. Okay. So truth be told, in all honesty, why would anyone want that specifically in their home country, for crying out loud? For that matter, okay? Because trust me, if people are dedicated, even if they have the disadvantage, it still doesn't mean they can't inflict losses, to be quite blunt and honest with you, okay? And that's the truth I'm trying to get across here, to be quite blunt and honest with you. So, in short, why don't we just do the best to ignore the situation in the first place for a community of people that don't even bother the majority of white people in the first place? That's my first point I'm trying to get across here, for that matter, okay? So or I should say my second. But anyway, you get the point. Like, why don't we just end that? Okay. And the third and last reason how conservatives ruin society, you know, since my video is going to end soon, I have to get to this point. You know, it's simply down to the fact that they just in general are anti-fun. When you look at the history of the world, they've always been against good quality entertainment, and just in general anything for that matter that's actually enjoyable. Everything that you can imagine, even the things that we consider conservative middle-aged white men stuff nowadays, was at the time considered very liberal, like Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and all that stuff, to even all the movies and stuff. And those are things that they've taken away from us to be able to enjoy, because historically they just really just wanted a really Christian society anyway. That would just pretty much be the equivalent of like Islamic society when it comes to strictness, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So that's the last way they ruin things. So don't believe the hype about, now it's the liberals, or I should say it's the liberals who are trying to take away our freedom when it comes to entertainment. No, it's historically been numb. It's been numb. You can even look it up yourself. So that is the truth of the matter. So anyway, those are my 3 points I have to make for this video. All I have to say is that I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. And just remember, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumbs this video up and press the subscribe button. Okay? And that is all I have to say. And simply put, I'm out. So bye.